Welcome back to the channel. Today is Tuesday, July 14th, 2026, and this is your full breakdown of the WNBA slate. Now, I want to be upfront with you right away. Tonight is a light slate. Just 2 games. Portland at Connecticut in the morning window, and then Washington at Toronto tonight. Before we zoom into tonight's 2 games, let's set the table with where the league actually stands, because both of tonight's games make a lot more sense once you see the standings. On the Western Conference side, this has been a stacked season. Minnesota is sitting at the top of the entire league at 18-6. Las Vegas and Golden State are both right behind them at 17-7 apiece. Dallas is having a strong year too at 16-8. Then there's a real drop-off. Los Angeles Sparks and Portland Fire are basically tied in the standings around .500, both hovering in that 10-win, low teens loss range. And then Phoenix and Seattle are down at the bottom of the West, both well under .300. Over in the Eastern Conference, it's a different shape entirely. Indiana is leading the East. Atlanta is right there with them. New York is a game or 2 back in third. Washington is sitting in that solid middle tier around .500, a few games over. Toronto is just below .500. And then Chicago and Connecticut are at the bottom of the conference. Connecticut, in fact, has the worst record in the entire WNBA right now. That context matters a lot for tonight, because both of our games tonight feature a bottom-of-the-standings team hosting a middle-of-the-pack team. Let's get into Game 1. So we start with Portland Fire at Connecticut Sun, so this is a rare weekday morning start at Mohegan Sun Arena in Uncasville, Connecticut. Records heading in, Portland Fire sit at 10 wins, 13 losses. Connecticut Sun sit at 5 wins, 18 losses. Again, that's the league's worst record right now. On paper this reads like a fairly lopsided game, but as we're going to see, records alone don't capture how competitive Connecticut has actually been in a lot of these losses. Let's dig into both teams' recent form. Let's start with Connecticut. The Sun are on a rough stretch at home specifically. They've lost 3 straight games at Mohegan Sun Arena, and for the season they're just 3-10 on their own floor. That's a brutal home split for a team that needs every possible advantage right now. Their most recent result was a loss at home to Golden State, 79-64, so they come into this one on a bit of a sour note. Over their last 10 games, Connecticut is 3-7. In that stretch, they're averaging 83.2 points a game, while their opponents have put up 84 a night against them, so a slightly negative scoring margin, roughly in line with a team that's a game or 2 below .500 form, even if the season-long record looks much worse than that. Statistically, Connecticut ranks 6th in the Eastern Conference in defensive rebounding at 23.6 boards a game, and that's been led by forward Anissa Morrow, who's averaging 6.6 defensive boards herself. Shooting-wise, Connecticut is hitting just 43.1% from the field on the season, and they're a genuinely poor 3-point shooting team, only around 27.8% from beyond the arc. That matters a lot against tonight's opponent, which we'll get to. Now let's flip to Portland. The Fire are the more form-positive team walking in here. They've won 3 of their last 4 games, and their most recent outing was arguably their best offensive performance of the season, a 102-92 road win over Atlanta, where they shot 60% from the field and knocked down 14 of 29 three-pointers. That's the 5th time this season Portland has hit at least 14 threes in a game, so when their perimeter shot is falling, they can really put up numbers. Over their last 10 games, Portland is 4-6, averaging 89.5 points a night, while shooting 43.8% from the field as a team. Where it gets uglier for them defensively, their opponents in that stretch have averaged 98.5 points a game against them. So the story on Portland right now is a team that can score in bunches, especially from 3, but is genuinely leaky on the other end. Portland is shooting 34.6% from 3 on the season, which ranks 6th in the league, and forward Bridget Carlton has been a big part of that. She's shooting 37.2% from deep and made 7 of 13 threes in a win over Seattle last month. One more situational note, Portland is 3-1 in one-possession games this season, which tells you they've been reasonably composed in close finishes. Connecticut doesn't have a strong equivalent mark to point to here, partly because they haven't been in as many close games. A lot of their losses haven't been nail-biters. This is where tonight's game gets genuinely tricky to project, because Connecticut is dealing with serious depth issues. On the injury report for Connecticut, Brittany Griner is out, Anissa Morrow is out, and Sonia Rivers is out. That's 3 real rotation pieces gone. Griner obviously is their post-scoring and rim presence, Morrow is their leading defensive rebounder that we just talked about, and Rivers as a piece of their backcourt depth. Ashlon Jackson had been under a coach's decision designation but is off the injury report itself heading into today. When you lose Griner, Morrow, and Rivers on the same night, you're stripping out scoring, rebounding, and playmaking simultaneously from a team that was already the league's lowest scoring, worst-rated offense. The top remaining scoring option becomes someone like Olivia Nelson-Ododa, who's averaging right around 9 points and 5.6 rebounds a game this season, solid, but not the kind of number that replaces 3 absences. Portland's injury situation is much lighter. Sarah Ashley Barker is out, and Jordan Harrison is out. Barker's absence takes away a ball handler and secondary scoring option from their rotation, but Portland's top pieces, their leading scorers, and their perimeter shooters like Carlton, are available and expected to play. So the injury report clearly tilts this matchup toward Portland. Connecticut is playing shorthanded against a team that's shooting the ball well and getting healthier bodies onto the floor. Let's talk efficiency numbers, because this is where you start to see just how even this game actually is on paper, despite the win-loss records looking lopsided. Portland's offensive rating sits at 105.2, with a defensive rating of 114.0, giving them a net rating around -8.9. Connecticut's offensive rating is 100.0, with a defensive rating of 108.9, landing at almost the exact same net rating, also around -8.9. So by the underlying efficiency numbers, these are 2 teams performing at nearly identical overall levels this season. Connecticut just has a harder time generating points, while Portland has a harder time stopping them. It's 2 different routes to a similar net result. Here's a shooting matchup worth flagging. Connecticut shoots 43.1% from the field as a team. Portland's defense this season is allowing 46.5% shooting to opponents, meaning Connecticut's shooting efficiency actually sits below what Portland typically gives up, which is a mild concern for the Suns' offense finding a rhythm here. On the other side, Portland is making about 9.6 threes a game on average, and Connecticut's defense is allowing roughly 8.6 made threes a night to opponents, so Portland's three-point volume projects to run a bit hot against this Connecticut defense too. The pace picture, both teams project to play at a fairly brisk tempo, but Connecticut's shorthanded frontcourt and backcourt could actually push them into longer, more deliberate half-court possessions simply because they don't have the shot creators to play fast and clean. Head-to-head this season, Portland has actually swept the first 2 meetings between these teams, an 83-82 win back on May 18th, and a 71-61 win in late May, with Carla Leyde scoring 20 points in that second meeting. So Portland enters this 3rd meeting with the season series lead and recent success against this exact opponent. Alright, let's get to the picks for Game 1. For my side pick, and given the injury report gap, Connecticut missing 3 rotation contributors versus Portland missing 2 lesser-used pieces, combined with Portland's superior recent offensive form and their season series sweep of this same opponent, I'm going with Portland Fire to win, and I'd lean Portland on the spread if you're looking at anything around a pick'em or Connecticut favored by a point or 2 at home. The market has actually priced this close to even, with some books even installing Connecticut as a slight home favorite, but I think that's undervaluing just how thin Connecticut's rotation is tonight. My side pick is Portland Fire. For my total pick, I like over 167.5 points. Both teams have real scoring question marks, but also real scoring capability when things click. Portland is a top-half three-point shooting team getting to face a Connecticut defense that gives up a below-average amount of resistance from deep. Connecticut, even shorthanded, has to try to play catch-up basketball against a team playing with confidence, which tends to push pace and possessions up. Next, we have Washington Mystics at Toronto Tempo. Washington comes in at 11 wins, 10 losses, sitting in that solid middle tier of the Eastern Conference we mentioned earlier. Toronto is at 10 wins, 13 losses. Both teams are coming off wins in their most recent outings, so there's real momentum on both sides walking into this one, which makes it a genuinely competitive Tuesday night matchup. Let's start with Washington. The Mystics just beat Seattle at home, 84-79, coming off a strong performance where Shakira Austin scored 10 of her points in the fourth quarter to help close it out, and Kiki Iriefin added 12 points and 13 rebounds. Sonia Citron chipped in 19 points in that game as well. Washington is now 6-4 over their last 10 games, and importantly, they're 6-5 straight up on the road this season, a genuinely respectable road mark for a team traveling into a division rival's building. Washington's biggest team-wide statistical strength is rebounding. They're pulling in boards at a 54.1% team rebound rate, which is the clearest statistical advantage in this whole matchup on paper. Iriefin and Austin give this team real interior control on the glass. In that win over Seattle, Washington actually out-rebounded their opponent 40 times as a team, with Iriefin alone grabbing 13 boards. The concern for Washington is ball security. Their turnover rate sits at 18%, which is considerably higher than Toronto's mark, and they turned it over 15 times in that Seattle win alone. Over their last 5 games specifically, Washington has actually struggled shooting the ball, just 41% from the field, 30% from 3. And only 65.9% at the free throw line in that stretch, while averaging around 19 turnovers a game. So even though the record in the recent win looked good, there are some efficiency red flags underneath the surface. Now, Toronto. The Tempo just won a nail-biter over New York, 93-91. They actually built a 16-point lead heading into the fourth quarter, saw New York erase almost all of it and tie the game with under a minute and a half left, before Nyara Sabali hit the go-ahead layup with under a minute remaining, and New York missed their final looks. Laura Jeskate scored 18 in that game, Maria Conde added 15, and Julie Alamand ran the offense with 10 assists. That result moved Toronto to 10-13, but puts them at 3-7 over their last 10 games, so despite winning their last game, the broader recent trend for Toronto has actually been rough. They're also 6-7 at home on the season, a below .500 home mark, which is a real point of concern hosting a team that's been solid on the road. Where Toronto stands out statistically is pace and shooting efficiency. They play faster than Washington, space the floor more aggressively, and carry a real advantage in offensive rating and points per game. Over their last 5 games, Toronto has shot 48% from the field and 38% from 3, significantly better recent shooting form than what Washington has shown in that same stretch. Toronto's turnover rate, at 14.4%, is also notably better than Washington's 18% mark, even though they did cough it up 23 times in that tight win over New York, showing that advantage isn't automatic under pressure. Head-to-head this season, Washington has won both previous meetings against Toronto this year, so the Mystics carry the season series and clearly have had this matchup figured out so far. Washington's injury report is short. Dariana Littlepage-Buggs is out. That's a rotation piece, but not one of Washington's key offensive weapons. Austin, Iriefin, and Citron are all expected to be available. Toronto's situation is more significant. Timmy Fagbendel is out, Kiki Rice is out, and most importantly, Brittany Sykes is out. Sykes is Toronto's number 2 scorer and one of their best perimeter, point-of-attack defenders. Her absence is a real blow, both offensively and in terms of Toronto's ability to defend Washington's guards. With Sykes sidelined, Toronto has leaned more heavily on Julie Alamand to organize the offense, and she's been up to the task, averaging north of 5 assists a game and setting up both Marina Mabry and their interior scorers like Isabel Harrison, who's shooting above 50% from the field this season. So the injury report here gives Washington a clear edge defensively and depth-wise, even though Toronto's own remaining pieces have shown they can produce without Sykes on the floor. Toronto currently carries the weaker defensive rating of the 2 teams playing tonight, and that lines up with Washington's rebounding advantage and Toronto missing a key perimeter defender in Sykes. On the other hand, Washington's turnover issues are a real live concern against a Toronto team that, even with some inconsistency, is capable of scoring in bunches through Mabry and Alamand. The betting market has installed Washington as a small favorite, and I actually agree with that lean here. For my side pick, I like Washington Mystics here. They've swept the season series so far. They have the healthier roster tonight with Sykes out for Toronto, and their rebounding advantage should let them control extra possessions, even accounting for their turnover issues. For the total, I lean over 170.5 points. This has the makings of a higher scoring, faster-paced game than Game 1. Toronto plays fast, spaces the floor well, and has been one of the more over-friendly teams in the league this season in terms of games clearing the total. Washington has also cleared the total in the majority of their recent games. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button, subscribe for daily WNBA coverage, and drop your own picks for tonight in the comments. I want to see who's fading me and who's riding with me. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.